Over the past several weeks, we've used the platform of the MidWeek interview show to highlight local issues that deal with faith, family, and our community. As we've seen the recent events around the country and even in our own city unfold, we thought we'd take time over the next few weeks to highlight and amplify some of the voices that are a part of Rancho and our community that you may not have heard from. These are people who call our church and our valley home, and they're committed to help lead conversations that only they can lead. We're going to hear about race and justice from their experience as people of color, to hear their stories and their ideas to bring real, sustainable change. It's time for us to stop and listen, to learn. And as they share, I think you'll realize that it's time for their stories to become our stories. It's time for us to unite with people of color in a way that's more than words and signs and slogans, but to advance the cause of Christ, the cause of justice and reconciliation. I want to invite you to join us on this journey and share these important interviews with friends and families. I think you'll really enjoy this episode and many to come.
All right, so my name is Tamara Dewey, and I got started at Rancho 5 years ago by joining a young professionals group. Through that group, I was able to make some really good friendships, and then recently I had the opportunity to co-facilitate a Be the Bridge group. Looking back on these events, being a Black female, with the death of George Floyd, so that was on a Tuesday, I cried every single day from Tuesday to Saturday, just at random times or, through social media, and I just felt like I was ripped inside out. It was just horrifying. With people going and protesting and being very vocal about the things that are going on, I personally love it. I think it's great. A lot of my really close friends live in Los Angeles County, and so I have a friend that has been out every single day protesting in LA, and he's a Black man, so as a Black man, I feel like he has every right to go and make known that he deserves to be treated like a human being just like everybody else, because it could easily have been him on any other day. I feel like there's a big voice of young people. One, I just feel like our world is so interconnected through technology and social media that we've really broken out of just our friends that are in our small circle in our town. We've been able to be connected with people all over the world. I feel like we're much more informed about issues all over the world just because we have information at our fingertips. Basically, we can look up anything, whether it's relating to our African American history in other countries, and I think we've seen the cycle of history repeating itself, and we want to be the ones to make sure that it stops. So I grew up in Marietta. I grew up in this community, went to school from kindergarten through high school, left to go to college, was overseas for a while, and then came back here. So having grown up in this community and seeing that there were actually people protesting, I honestly was shocked at first, because I was like, of course my friend in Los Angeles is going to go protest. It's a huge city. But to see people come out here in Marietta and Temecula protesting felt really hopeful for me, that wow, people are really stepping out of what I knew growing up here. I feel like it's kind of split down the middle, in a lot of different ways on social media and different things I've seen people putting up. I love that the protests are happening. Obviously, we have a good amount of numbers there. People are honking and encouraging as they go by. And then I've also seen other comments where it's why is this happening? This is a waste of time. So I feel like it's split, but really for me, that hopeful part is that we had enough people that were willing to rally and publicly put themselves out there, that I think is a huge step for our community. Before I joined the young professionals here, I had tried to join a lot of different groups in the area. The first thing that brought me to Rancho was that they even had one for my age range, right? I was out of college, I was in the professional field, and trying to find groups for that age was very hard. It was, middle, high school, college, and then the next one was married. So I'm single, so I was like, well, then there's no place for me. So just the fact that Rancho even had anything for where I was in life was really big. I did definitely have reservations coming into the group, because I kind of knew inherently I was going to be the only, if not one of very few people of color in the group. Having grown up in this community, though, it's kind of to be expected. That's kind of the repeating thing that happens is One of the other people in the group had mentioned something, and I was like, oh my gosh, I do that too, in our Be the Bridge group. But she's like, when I go into church on Sunday, like I scan the room to see, okay, like who else do I identify with in here? And I was like, I do the same exact thing. And it's not, again, no one has said anything, but you go in looking for that person that's like you, and you're like, oh, there's like 3 people here today, okay. So trying to find those places that you connect with people. So it is difficult, but I mean, I've been welcomed by everybody that's been here, so it's been good, but it's more of that like internal conflict that goes on when you're used to walking into rooms where you're one of the few. I was in a place in my life where I had kind of been away from the church for a while, and I was like, I knew I need to get back. And so if I want to get back, like this has to be the first step, as uncomfortable as it is. Yes, not everybody looks like me, but I mean, at the end of the day, like if I'm really in this to build my relationship with God, I know that this is something that I need to do. And again, everybody in the group was very welcoming, open. I feel the community of the group, you felt it was real and true, and that everybody was there for pure intentions. Nobody was there just, to hang out or mess around. Like, we obviously had great conversations about God, but I felt that people were truly there too to form relationships with people. I think sometimes it's hard for me to consider myself a leader. Again, going back to even just joining the young professionals, again, I really think it's a God thing that He got me started 5 years ago, have built relationships, had the opportunity to lead a Be the Bridge, and then with the climate that's going on in the world right now, I feel like they were all baby steps to kind of lead up to this point that I would have the relationships and the rapport and be able to just offer my voice in this situation to be able to help us all come together. So I think one of the biggest things, so like I said, I'm a school counselor, and I think one of the things is my experience kind of with being in school systems and that teacher aspect almost a little bit. I know in our Be the Bridge group, like I brought icebreakers every single time for every group, knowing that when I run small groups with kids or even just in group counseling in general, there has to be that rapport and that relationship. That's something that's been on my heart for a long time, as I really truly believe that the relationships with other people are the foundation of anything, and that's most important. So I think my leadership style is really trying to foster relationships, whether it's in a church group, I coach soccer as well, whether it's in teams that I coach, whether it's with the kids that I interact with in my job. I really feel like I'm just full blown on relationships, because you're not going to be able to hear anything I say if you don't have a relationship with me, and vice versa. I think right now more than ever, we definitely need Jesus. I think it's so hard too, because it's bringing to light how we all receive the message of Jesus differently. And I think a lot of the conflict that's going on right now is my perception of Jesus and what He stood for is different than other people's. A lot of people build their life and their foundation on those realities, and so when they're being challenged by other people, it's really hard. In this current climate too, I've really tried to make sure that I'm putting Jesus more in focus, whether it's just through worship, so that as things are going on, I have songs that are readily available in my head for different situations, making sure, I mean, honestly, I've seen more church in this time when I've been locked at home than I usually have otherwise, just because, again, I'm a soccer coach, like many people have children or in sports, and you're out on the weekends and you're moving, you're like, oh yeah, I'll listen to that, and then you never do. And so I think it's a blessing in disguise to have this time, to have these difficult conversations, but always be able to go back to the truth, the word, what we should stand on, and that's the Bible and what Jesus said. I feel like one of the biggest things that the church can do just as a whole is acknowledging what's going on, just in conversations with other people, some Christians, some not. I think one of the most hurtful things to communities of color is when we're vulnerable, we tell our truth, and then it's dismissed. To not be acknowledged is extremely, extremely hard to deal with. And for a lot of people in communities of color, they've kind of gone silent because they've tried to talk to people over and over again. But when you continually put yourself out there and are hurt, it's almost like, what's the point anymore? These are the rules that we play this game by. right? And so it'd be silly for me to continue to do the same thing and get hurt. I think to build trust, not even, with communities of color, but not even that. I even feel like for my generation, one of the reasons I was away from the church for a while is I just felt like it was very hypocritical. Like, we're saying we gotta love people, we gotta help people, and then when there were marginalized people or communities that needed help, they were turned away, or it was this awful thing. So I really think acknowledging what's going on and just reflecting on practices is going to be a huge first step for the church. I honestly think no matter where you are in this journey of talking about race, that self-reflection is huge. It's just to continue to keep reflecting on yourself and understanding, like, why do different things make me feel that way? So if the Black community is asking to be seen and be heard, why do I have this rush of emotion when they say that? Like, what is it in me that is making that such a controversial statement? Because I think a lot of people will say, I'm a good person, I love people, I want to help. So what is it that when marginalized communities speak up and ask for help, that you slam on the brakes? So I think that self-reflection piece is huge, and really just educating yourself. I don't think that you should feel like you need to go enroll in like classes in a college. I don't think you need to donate half of your money to different organizations. Obviously taking classes that are available, donating to causes that help are great, but I don't want people to jump in and then be overwhelmed and then leave, because I think that's something that's very common, that it gets too overwhelming, especially for people with white culture, because you haven't been exposed to this before. And when you start speaking out as an ally, then you get the same reaction that people of color get, and they've been speaking out for a long time, and it's exhausting, it's tiring. It definitely wears on yourself and relationships. So it's important to know this is a marathon, not a sprint. These systems have been in place forever, since the founding of our country, basically. So doing anything in 2 weeks isn't the answer. I personally, as a person of color, as a Black woman, would much rather you be with me for the long ride than ride really hard for me right now for 2 weeks because it's in the media, and then when I need you again, say, I'm tired, I'm burnt out, I can't do it. And looking forward in what we're hoping with this unity, one thing that really stands out to me is, again, in conversations I've had with people, a lot of people, again, are like, I'm a good person, I love people. I think what the church at large, specifically the white church at large, has really missed is action. So when I think of the future and what we're looking at, I think it looks like action. The quote I've heard before, I'm a big quote person, but love is a verb, right? So you can love people, you can love me and value me, but if you don't act on my behalf, is it really love? And so I think looking into the future, it's everybody taking action steps, whatever that is. Again, some people are going to be foot on the ground protesting. Some people, like myself, I'm trying to get information out here and I want to take it back to the school system. Wherever your circle of influence is, I feel like it's calling people on what they're doing, keeping people accountable, and taking action steps, because it's great to not be overtly hateful to people, but I feel like that's a really low bar. So I didn't, say something awful to someone today, that was great. But we need you to start moving forward, not just say, oh, I didn't do anything negative. I think when we're truly united, we're all moving in the same direction forward, and we're making things happen. We're taking actionable steps. And when I see that you're fighting on my behalf, I, of course, will fight on your behalf. And if we're all fighting for the common good of everyone, that's going to be a really amazing society and place to live in. When we're talking about action and making sure that we're fighting for each other and supporting each other, so one of my friends that I met through the Young Professionals and was my other co-facilitator in the Be the Bridge group, she's gone full board. That's definitely her personality. But by speaking up and making sure that she's not just speaking up to me, one, she acknowledged what I've been through. So when I would share experiences, she'd be like, I get that, and I'm sorry that happened. And she's taken it upon herself to speak out not only to family members, but friends, people that she works with, and really trying to make sure that other people understand why I may be saying the things that I say, or just trying to understand my experience as a person of color. Another person is my mom, so I am adopted. My entire family is white, so me and my mom have been having this conversation for probably around the time I joined Rancho, coincidentally, but just little things here and there. It was stuff that would happen in the media, growing up in a white family. Again, white families don't talk about race or ethnicity. Even though I'm a different race and ethnicity from my family, it was never spoken about. My mom shares about how as she was growing up too, there was this whole push for being colorblind, right? Because if I point out a difference, that's being disrespectful. And me challenging her on that, where if you're saying you can't see that I'm different than you, you're missing a huge part of me. Like, we teach kids differences are great, but then we don't want them to talk about it. So that kind of, battling thing. But through these conversations that we've had, and especially now in this climate, she's pushing herself, and she's doing such a good job. And she's like, I'm realizing that when conversations are going on around me and they're not really focusing on the issue at hand, I have to speak up and I have to say something. And, okay, emotional. But that means the world to me that my mom would do that, because I know it's really hard for her. I know her experience is totally different than mine, and just the fact that, again, we've gotten to it a lot of times, but the fact that she would put herself out there for me means everything in a community where not everybody looks like me. And I've had to have these experiences on my own in college as a grown woman, and to come back to her and have her be like, you know what, enough's enough, because I want better for you and I want better for your kids is huge. Like, that's all that I can ask for.